This is the One Girl Revolution podcast, a podcast that highlights the stories of world-changing women and girls across the country. We hope that these stories inspire you, but even more so, we hope that these stories help you to see your own value, your purpose, and your power to change the world through your life. Every woman and girl is a One Girl Revolution. Welcome back to the One Girl Revolution podcast. It's your girl, Kate, here. This week's episode is one that you don't want to miss. I'm honored to be joined by two powerhouse women, Kristi Wells and Brittany Dunn, the founders of the Safe House Project. Founded in 2017, the Safe House Project was born out of a passionate desire to see an end to human trafficking in our world. Inspired by the historic symbol of safe havens during the Underground Railroad, Kristi and Brittany set out to continue that legacy, building modern-day safe homes where survivors can find refuge, healing, and hope. In just a few short years, the Safe House Project has become a national leader in the fight against human trafficking. Their work has led to the launch of safe houses across the country, and today they provide over 227,000 safe nights for survivors every single year. But their mission doesn't stop there. They're also educating communities, training first responders, and helping identify and rescue victims of trafficking. One of their newest and most groundbreaking endeavors is a first-of-its-kind app called Simply Report. It's available now in the App Store, and it allows anyone, whether you're a teacher, flight attendant, nurse, teen, or just a concerned community member, to report suspected trafficking or exploitation directly and anonymously. It's quick, it's easy, it's effective, and it could save a life. In this episode, Kristi and Brittany share the incredible story behind the Safe House Project, how they're changing lives and creating a safer world, and how every one of us has a role to play in the fight against human trafficking. This conversation is powerful, eye-opening, and one that will stay with you forever. Here's my conversation with Kristi and Brittany. Kristi and Brittany, welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Thank you.
We're so much for having us.
Thank you so much for being on. I cannot wait to talk about the Safe House Project and all the incredible work that you do. But before we get into that, I always like to rewind and hear a little bit about your own stories. So, I love the evolution of the person. I know we're always evolving and always growing into who you're created to be. And so I would love to just rewind for a minute and hear a little bit about each of your stories before the Safe House Project, before you got into all the work that you're doing. So maybe Kristi, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to be here. And the way that Safe House Project developed has a lot to do with the backgrounds that Britt and I had before that we had no idea would ever even come into play in the development of an organization. So I was in she was in mergers and acquisitions. I was in marketing and advertising and sales. Our stories have just blended together over the years. So I was more on the marketing and advertising and sales side of things. Spent some time in pharmaceutical sales, spent some time doing advertising. As a military spouse, it was really about wherever my husband was stationed. And so just followed him. But I had seen trafficking internationally. I'd seen it in Costa Rica when I was 16 years old on a missions trip. And so always had that heart for the issue, really thought it was an international issue for a long time. But so I would always follow organizations that on social media that did did anti-trafficking work, but never really connected the dots until we began a project that I'm sure we'll talk about here in a second.
Yeah, that's amazing. Britt, what about you?
Yeah, so I love this question, especially right now. It feels like that season where I'm seeing so many students graduate from college and all of that. And so my journey began at a women's college. So that's why I love the podcast, is I'm like, yes. And our motto is women who will. And so I've been reflecting a lot on where I thought I would be, like exiting college and getting here today. And that has taken so many turns. I really thought I wanted to be an astrophysicist, but my dad told me that I wouldn't make any money marrying a military man and trying to do that. And he told me that was really just a glorified weather girl. And I was like, I don't think that's right. So Fast forward, didn't go that route. I ended up in more the business development side and did mergers and acquisitions around the world for over a decade with a tech firm, and really got to see where trafficking had woven itself into the parts of communities around the world. And then as a military spouse, just again saw where we were seeing the trafficking, especially our last duty station before Kristi and I launched Safe House Project was outside of Reno, Nevada, where the brothels are still active. And so watching these young girls be recruited right out of our high schools just really broke your heart for where they were being set up as their long-term success and what was being put in front of them as dreams and goals. And so I'm just excited to chat with y'all today.
How did you both get connected? How did you become friends? Because I know that, you're co-founders of the Safe House Project. How did you first connect?
Yeah. Well, normally you like to probably date somebody for a little while, like get to know them before you jump into these things. We knew each other through Bible study, and that was wonderful. But when we decided to do this, we had dinner together one time. So, Kristi, you can share about our first date.
So we had, when we met through the Bible study, it was one that was couples. And so had a chance to interact with her and her husband and her family. And both of us had recognized that we both had a heart for the issue of human trafficking. And a friend of ours had gone to South Africa, had seen a need. He was a Christian hip hop artist, and he'd seen a need to build up a safe house to protect these girls at risk of trafficking in South Africa. He came back with his heart on fire. I jumped in and said, hey, I can help. I have a background in PR. So I ran the hip hop or the launch for a hip hop album. If you ever want something highly entertaining, be the only white chick launching a hip hop album, which I was informed by many people. You do know you're white, right? Do you listen to hip hop? No. Okay, great. But we helped launch this album in order to raise money for this house in South Africa. And people started to say, well, that's great, but what are you going to do here? The only person I knew of that had even mentioned trafficking in the US was Brittany. And so we started talking about things and kind of this idea of launching this as a separate project from what was called the Safe House Project, which was this album. It turned into our husbands deploying within a week of each other, unexpectedly, or hers unexpectedly. Mine, we had a short notice. We had 5 children under the age of 7. Brittany was on maternity leave, and her daughter was 5 weeks old, and we had the 2 of us together. So Valentine's Day was our first date. Her husband had bought scallops to make them, and he left. And so he handed me the scallops and said, good luck. And she came over for dinner, and we just started talking about kind of vision beyond our resources, and something that was so big it scared us. But there were a couple of books that had entered our world at the time. One was called Lioness Arising, and the other one was called The Circle Maker. And both of those had kind of infused this idea into us that God didn't save us to tame us, and that it was okay to have vision beyond our resources. And so we were facing kind of the darkness of the world and understanding how bad things were. And then we were seeing our children run and play and laugh and pick flowers. And we thought, how could it be us to do this? But if not us, who? And so we were willing to step into something when our husbands deployed and 5 children under the age of 7, and God said go. And so we decided to launch.
Women are so incredible. And that story alone is like, women can do so many different things. We're so resilient, but also I'm just picturing the 2 of you sitting there eating your scallops and like kids running around, and you're like, yeah, let's do this thing. If not us, then who? That's
pretty much how it went down. Just don't forget, there was a baby that was swaddled, literally laying on the table between the 2 of us asleep.
But it's like, why not at least try, and who knew back then that the Safe House Project would grow and evolve into what it is today. But a lot of times in my experience, and even through this podcast, a lot of the stories that we've highlighted are women like yourselves that are like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this thing. but I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other. Is it the perfect time? No, it's not. Do I have funding? No, I don't, but I'm going to figure it out. And that's what you both did.
Yep. Yep. We've seen so many other fantastic women who have gone before us in other organizations. And I think that's some women who are dear mentors of ours launched something in South Africa, and same thing. They're like, what are we doing? And why is this the thing? But when you have phenomenal female mentors and leaders and you go, okay, they've done it. And I don't know how, but and you've got other women who are cheering you on, then it makes it a little less scary.
Yeah. And support system with both of you supporting one another. And I know your families are a part of it too, but we need to have a support system, build our own little army that are going to support the work that we're doing. And I know that that's what you've done, that you've created this little army of the two of you and your kids, and now your husbands are a part of it. And, everybody else who's a part of the Safe House Project is just, it's grown and evolved, which is incredible. And I think another thing that comes to mind is a lot of times people think about human trafficking as something that happens internationally, right? And I think, Kristi, you mentioned this. It's like, oh, you see it, okay, Costa Rica, it happens there, but it's happening here in our own communities. And I'm sitting in Detroit. I live in Detroit, and I know that trafficking is a huge issue here because we're close to the Canadian border. We're close to multiple states. And so it's easy for people to get in and out of situations here. And so we have a huge problem here, and I'm aware of it because of the friends that I have, and also through this podcast, knowing about the different organizations. But there are so many people out there that think that's not happening in my own community. That's not even happening in the US. And the reality is it's happening everywhere. It's happening in our communities. It's happening in our own cities and states. And it's important for us to step in and do what we can.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was most surprising when we launched is that we really made ourselves students of the anti-trafficking field, because we didn't want to repeat anything that anyone was doing well. But as we really leaned into that, realizing that hundreds of thousands of American kids are trafficked every year, and that it's impacting all parts of our community, was startling. But then you realize that over 40 to 50% of minor victims of trafficking are first trafficked by family members due to the vulnerabilities that their family is experiencing. And that's where your heart really breaks, because suddenly it's not this overseas issue. You can see how it can play out, in all areas of our community. And I think that's really what Kristi and I saw, and recognized that what we tolerate is what we give permission to exist. And so if we weren't willing to lean into the heart and to go into those areas and have those deep conversations and learn and try to find solutions to complex problems, then it isn't just going to impact this generation. It's going to impact the next generation and the next generation and the next. And so we just really, really desire to be part of that solution.
Well, you are such a part of the solution. And I know that your work and your organization is opening so many people's eyes to this issue and this topic. And you are allowing so many people to get involved in this great work too, because I know there are a lot of facets to the work that you're doing. Every day, women and girls are changing the world, lifting up their communities and making a difference. At One Girl Revolution, we are dedicated to highlighting the stories of world-changing women and girls to inspire the world. But we can't do it alone. This year, we're celebrating 6 years of telling these world-changing stories, and we need your help to keep it going. Become a monthly donor by giving just $6 a month in honor of our anniversary. Every single dollar fuels our mission, keeping the podcast going, expanding our reach, and making sure these voices and these stories are heard far and wide. If you believe in the power of women's voices and their stories, if you want to be a part of the revolution, donate today. Go to onegirlrevolution.com/donate and be a part of the revolution. For people that are listening, okay, so I'm rewinding back to your story about, you're sitting on your first date, you come up with this idea, you're like, we got to do something. How do you go from there to starting this nonprofit organization? And then can you talk about all the great work that you're doing, the facets of the Safe House Project?
I think that what was really a blessing is that having a background in business, at least we had a foundation for both of us on how to build organizations. So we did come with just varying, experience. She came really with that strong sales and marketing side, and then I have a lot more on the finance and operations and those pieces. And so we had a really strong foundation that we were working off of. But from there, honestly, what it is it's partnership and collaboration. This is not work that can be done by one organization, one individual. It really requires that we are in a constant state of learning from those who are, doing work at the very local level. How do we come alongside policymakers? Where is there opportunities to strengthen current systems? And I think that more than anything, we really had to have a teachable spirit and be willing to be really humble and saying, hey, this is a new field for us. We don't come from backgrounds in social work or even from like the law profession or law enforcement. And so coming in and saying, hey, there's a lot we don't know, but these are the things that we can do to help support. And so by identifying gaps, we were able to figure out what resources and tools we had in our tool belt that we could apply to some of the solutions to drive forward the needs of the field.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's not, yeah, not recreating the wheel, but okay, what's already out there? And then where can we fill the gaps? Where can we collaborate with other people? Kristi, can you talk about, for people that are listening, what is the Safe House Project, and talk about the great work that you do?
Yeah, so we are a national anti-trafficking organization, and we do a few key things. First is we work to train individuals to identify and respond to human trafficking. When we came into this space, there were a lot of people talking about they were an awareness organization. So they were all about raising awareness, human trafficking is happening in our community. But what we realized was that a lot of people still had a lot of misnomers and myths around what human trafficking was. So you'd see the signs with the girl with the hand over their mouth or somebody shackled. And so therefore, that's what people were looking for. And we actually at one point had a victim of human trafficking end up in a healthcare setting years later. And the healthcare worker called me and she said, well, she's saying she's a victim of human trafficking, but I don't believe that because she doesn't look like she's been shackled. And so even when somebody was self-reporting, there was so much misunderstanding around what it looked like. So we really started, one of our core focuses is on victim identification training. So equipping community members, healthcare workers, law enforcement, in-home service providers on how to understand the science of trafficking. So we've trained over 400,000 people. We've got a variety of different training solutions, one of which anybody on this podcast can take. It's called On Watch, and they can get to it at iamonwatch.org and take the free 1-hour training. But again, all of that was done with the heart of increasing identification rates. We're only seeing 1% of trafficking victims in the United States, and you can't solve a problem that you can't see. And so from there, we are seeing this work. We are seeing healthcare workers identify trafficking victims. We are seeing law enforcement when they're doing raids, helping victims escape. And so every day our team gets calls from all of those different groups and from survivors themselves when somebody is looking to exit their trafficking situation and they need help and they need to access resources. The reason this is critical is that without a safe place to go and truly heal once somebody escapes trafficking, 80% will be re-victimized. A lot of people think, oh, you kick down the door, you rescue the, quote unquote, rescue the victim, and then everything's great. But that's not reality. The reality is you've got people who have complex trauma upon complex trauma, and they need a variety of different therapeutic modalities in order to help them heal. Sometimes it's not about reestablishing normal, it's about establishing normal. If they've experienced exploitation since they were a child, they don't know what healthy boundaries look like. Nobody taught them to brush their teeth. Nobody taught them how to take care of themselves. And so we can help victims escape, and we help connect them to really high quality safe homes. So these are ones that we certify through a national certification model. We deeply evaluate them. These safe homes are our friends, they're our partners, they're ones that we do grant funding for. And so when we can marry the individualized needs of the survivor with the individualized expertise of the safe home, their stick and stay rate is fantastic. And we truly get to see them find healing. We also do a variety of things on the policy side, and I will let Brittany talk about our new baby, Simply Report.
It has been a process, but we are so excited.
It was a long pregnancy.
It was, yeah. It was Yeah, everything in our world, I think as moms just kind of equates back to that felt like pregnancy. So that's where we measure everything on. But Simply Report really is a first of its kind multi-channel platform that lets everyday Americans report suspected human trafficking. It's anonymous and in real time, and it's available via app, our website, and then text and phone. And so it really does an immediate assessment of that report using a behavioral risk model that we built. And then it, depending on how it ranks out, we'll direct it to law enforcement. In addition, any survivors who are seeking help can connect directly to our survivor support team to make sure that they get connected to the resources that Kristi was talking about. And really, at the end of the day, it's not really another hotline per se. It's a comprehensive system designed to help survivors find freedom faster and really help communities respond smarter to human trafficking.
Yeah, it's so incredible. I was reading about this app because I think it solves two problems that I think about. Sometimes we see something and we're like, oh, is that trafficking, or you're busy? I'm like thinking about even like different times that we've been at the airport, or you're running through a grocery store, or you know, we have so many things going on. And so you might see something, and I always think about see something, say something. But a lot of times people are like, well, I don't really know. I like saw it really quickly. So it's great to have that where you're actually assessing the situation. It's like, okay, this is the model, you put in what you're seeing, and then your app can help you assess that. And then of course, if it aligns, then get law enforcement involved and go from there. But then on the flip side, sometimes people see something. I'm thinking back to this story, and I can't remember where I saw it, but I know that there are other stories out there about somebody was at the airport, and they thought there was like some kind of abuse situation going on or human trafficking, and they went and like reported it, and it was like, no, it was just like a parent scolding their kid or something, you know. So I see those two kind of narratives that regularly happen in our world, and your app really is the solution to that.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're really excited about, because we've spent the past 3 years doing robust testing alongside working groups of psychologists and healthcare providers and educators. And there's really not one indicator that's going to be like, oh, that's automatically human trafficking, but it's the totality of the situation that's being assessed. And then it's ranking it out in the background for law enforcement, so that there's also that additional human kind of element that comes in to really assess the situation. And so it hopefully empowers people to at least come on, say what it is that they are seeing, and then from there know that it's in the trusted authorities' hands to take the right steps based on what information has been provided.
I was thinking about, as I was preparing for this conversation, I was thinking about even Elizabeth Smart. Many people would be familiar with her story when she was in Utah and she was kidnapped and taken into a situation where she was within close proximity of her family. And she was in a situation where the people that had kidnapped her abusers, had covered her face so nobody could see. But thankfully, somebody saw something and they said something, and she was able to get out of that situation. So I think it's so important for all of us to just have some sort of system, you know, whether it's the app or something that we can just utilize in those kind of situations where you see something that you're like, is that right? Without calling the police on every single situation. It's like, I think that's what's so great about Simply Report.
Yeah, and Elizabeth is actually an advocate of ours. She is the one of the spokespeople for On Watch, and she just understands deeply the power of empowering people. What it's exactly what needs to happen across communities. And you said it perfectly. You know, a lot of people go, okay, if you see something, say something. Great, but what am I looking for, and who do I say it to? And we really feel like between On Watch being that community-based training platform to equip people to know what to look for, and Simply Report being the reporting tool where they can simply and safely and anonymously report and know that it's getting routed to the appropriate authorities if it is deemed a trafficking situation. Those two things kind of feel like the 1-2 punch to trafficking. We know there's tons of organizations and public-private partnerships that have to be there in order for us to see trafficking eradicated. But we're really excited that these two tools, both of which are ones Elizabeth has backed up, but these are going to be tools that are going to make a tremendous difference.
Yeah, and I will be sure to put both of those in the show notes so people can easily, and of course your website, so people can easily follow everything that you're doing and, get linked into the app, because I think it's a great thing for us to know about and kind of take the time. I encourage everybody who's listening, take the time now to work your way through it so that you just know it almost becomes, your first impulse. It's like, oh, if you see something, you can utilize the app as a great resource. So, Kristi and Brittany, I know that there are so many stories that you could tell of people that have been helped through your work. And I know that there are going to be so many more stories, especially, as this app continues to be utilized and all the great work that you're doing continues to grow and evolve. But this podcast is all about stories. And I love hearing, maybe a story or two. I would love if each of you maybe could pick a story of someone who has been helped through the great work that you're doing that just illustrates, or you feel like illustrates, the power of what you're doing.
It's the hardest question because there's always those that are the very first ones that we got to serve, and those always like hold just such a special place in our heart. But I think what I'm really excited about is one that just even happened last week. And so now that Simply Report is live, there was a case that came through based on a healthcare provider who had been trained on how to identify suspected trafficking. She works in one of the pregnancy help organizations, and we really made that a focus for the past few years, knowing the intersection of survivors of trafficking going through different healthcare systems to really empower that community. And so because she was able to identify this young girl when she came into the clinic and then use Simply Report to validate the information that she was seeing, we were able to receive that information, help that clinician keep her safe in the clinic, and then mobilize resources to help that girl exit. And so now you don't just have a 14, 15-year-old who's safe, you also have her and her baby that are safe and receiving care. And so I think that's like, as we just are on the brink of like the next frontier in how we're going to be combating trafficking in the United States, I think that's one of those memories that I will carry with me because it felt like that moment of success. Like, this is an app, it's a tool, it's technology. That's fantastic. But at the end of the day, it's about the human at the other side of it that is in desperate need of wanting to find freedom. And that's what this did.
That's powerful. And I know that there are so many stories, and there are going to be continue to be so many other stories of people that are helped through this app and through your incredible work. Kristi, is there a story that comes to mind for you?
Oh gosh, again, like Brittany, there's so many. I think we get to see, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give you two.
Great.
But we get to see people as they're exiting their trafficking situation where they're in the most vulnerable of states and really are terrified to take that step and ask for help, because for many of them, they've done it so many times. They've asked for help and systems have failed them. And so it takes so much courage on their side to trust that when they jump, that this organization that they've just reached out to because they've just found our number somewhere online is going to be there to catch them. But when they have that courage, it's incredible. And so, to Britt's point, one of the very first survivors we ever served really tested the waters with us for quite some time, just really not believing that and this was before we were really fully doing placements, but not really believing that somebody would care about her. And eventually we were able to help her escape and get to a safe place. And she's been through healing. She's gone through safe house programs. She's gotten her college degree. She's gotten a job. She's bought her car. And she just radiates joy in a way that is palpable. And getting to be part of those 10 seconds of insane courage when somebody is taking that leap of faith is incredible. And our team is just honored to get to be a small part of that. But getting to see the rest of their stories and see the way those play out. We've been MCs in weddings for survivors when they're getting married. We have gotten the notes when they're pregnant. We've gotten the notes when they got engaged. And getting to be part of that and getting to see just the healing is possible even when they've experienced the depths of hell, is really incredible. But we did have one recently where somebody had reached out. They'd called a national hotline. Their trafficker was gone for about an hour and called a hotline, stayed on hold for 45 minutes, panicked, hung up, called a local organization and said, "Can you help me escape?" And they said, "No." And they said, "But we know who can." And so they called our team and said, "Hey, we've got a survivor. She's in need of services. Can you help?" And within 7 minutes, we had her out the door in an Uber on her way to a safe home. And so when we get to be part of those stories over and over and over again, it's the reason we come back to work every single day. It's a hard issue and it's a hard industry, but we just get to be on the hope side of a dark issue.
Yeah, it's those kind of stories. And yeah, I'm just envisioning these scenarios where it's life or death, right? It's a matter of minutes that you might have to get someone out the door. And the fact that your organization can step in those situations and even utilize things like Uber, right? We sometimes overcomplicate things like, oh, well, by the time I get there or by the time I get police, no, just get them out the door and get them in a Uber. And so that innovative thinking is so inspiring to me. But also it's a reminder to all of us, we can all do something, right? Maybe we don't know somebody who's in a trafficking situation, but we might know somebody who's in a domestic abuse situation or some other like violent situation that it's like, all right, what other resources can we utilize? Okay, Uber, let me send an Uber to whoever. There are so many things like that we can utilize.
Innovation is key.
Yes, it is. And your organization truly is doing such an incredible job. And I know it's grown and evolved and you've innovated in so many different ways and seen different needs, including like with the app, like, okay, why isn't this out there? Let us figure out how to do it. And I can't wait to see where you go from here. Kristi, you mentioned something that kind of, I guess, lit a little bit of a question in my mind for both of you. Obviously, human trafficking is such a difficult and dark issue. And I'm sure that the things that you're seeing every single day, both of you and your team, can be really hard. And also running a nonprofit organization is no easy situation. So, I'm so curious for each of you, what is the driving force? Like if you could get to the very root of why you do what you do every single day, especially thinking about those really difficult and dark days, what is the thing that lights that fire in you to keep going? And maybe Brittany, we'll start with you.
Such a good question. I think for me, I think it does go back a little bit to what I was talking about that generational impact and just knowing that if we choose to sit silent, then it's going to continue to make its way into the very fabric of our community. And so, when you launch something with your infant on the table, knowing that you're not doing this for yourself, but you're doing it for all of those kids, and then recognizing that your kids are safe, but that there's so many who aren't, and that they don't have those people around them to protect them and to ensure that they have the greatest opportunity at success. It really just compels you forward in a way that is hard to shake. And so I think as much as it has been so much about, yes, there are moments of extreme joy and we see extreme miracles on behalf of survivors, I think the thing that gets me up every day is the true belief that if we all bind together as a community, if we unite, that we can eradicate trafficking in our lifetime. And so I just have this audacious belief that this is possible and it requires everybody doing their small part. But when we come together under kind of that mantle of collective impact, change is possible. And so I really want to see this issue eradicated. And I think that's the thing that gets me going every single day.
Kristi, what about for you?
Ditto. I think that's been the kind of unifying driving force of the two of us. We didn't set out into this with two husbands deployed, her leaving corporate America, starting with nothing, to just make a dent. That's not enough. And when you have that big, audacious goal in front of you. And we put a timeline on it. We said 2030. We said that we want to see trafficking eradicated in America by 2030. And we did that with the intention of creating a sense of urgency. We want to work ourselves out of a job. we know, is trafficking going to be eradicated in our lifetime? I don't know, but we work like our lives depend on it, and we work like other people's lives depend on it, because they do. And so yes, we see the awful, but we've got a fire inside of us towards a really big goal, and halfway is not going to cut it. And so I think it's, we have days where it can be tough. You see a story with the survivor, you see something happen, and sometimes you feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill and it just bulldozes over you. But then you see survivors who have tried over and over again to exit and nobody's helped them. And all of a sudden you see them with a glimmer of hope, and kind of kicks you in the rear. I'll tell you one quick story that has always put it into focus. So we were charity partners with Marine Corps Marathon a few years back. And Brittany and I always operate with the mentality that we're never going to ask somebody to do something that we won't do ourselves. And so we decided to do the marathon and roped our husbands into it, and had a whole volunteer team that were charity partners that were raising money for them to do the race. And we get there the day of, and torrential downpour. Oh, and all of my luggage had been lost. So I'm like grabbing shoes and shorts and like whatever at the expo the day before. And we're thinking it's going to get canceled. Torrential downpour, no thunder, no lightning. And so we're running through DC, and the water starts to get really deep. So we're in a spot, it's about this deep. And it's now called the DC Swim Club. If anybody ran the 2019 Marine Corps Marathon, it's the DC Swim Club. But we were running, and being that it's a primary military focused event, you have a lot of veterans and active duty. All of the people running the water stations are Marines. They're out there, and it's just, they're soaked, and they're in their military gear. But this guy ran up next to us. Brittany and I were both feeling pretty sorry for ourselves. It's somewhere around mile 16, and it's just, we're wet and it's soggy and it's disgusting. Guy runs up next to us, double amputee, and he's trucking along, and all of a sudden his feet go out from under him and he just eats it. And he's on the ground, and everybody was kind of startled. Two guys come up alongside him, pick him up, and he keeps going. And we kind of looked at each other and went, our excuse is invalid. Any reason that we feel bad for ourselves, if he's willing to pick himself up and keep going and not complain, then what the heck is wrong with us? And so I think we see that so many times with the survivors. I think that's their courage is our driving force.
Yeah, it's other people, being those glimmers of hope, or the challenge to be like, hey, like if I can get up and keep going, like we all need those moments in our lives, but it's just taking a breath to like see those things too, and see that light from other people. But you each are such beacons of light, and the work that you're doing is so incredible. And I can't wait to continue to follow everything that you're doing and support in any way that we possibly can to promote what you have going on. But I want to know from both of you, where do you go from here? I know that you just, launched this app. I know that it was a whole, like, it probably feels like a lifetime in a lot of ways. And so, I know your focus is on that and all the work that you have going on, but where do you hope that the Safe House Project goes from here? And what are some other things that you're working on right now?
Well, yeah, I think that the app is only the beginning. And I think that's what really excites me, is that right now we're operating with 1% of the information on how to effectively combat this issue in the United States, with the victim identification rates being so low. So what this app does is it opens the floodgates to really say, let's get as much information running through this system as we possibly can, so that we can really start to map out where is trafficking happening throughout all aspects of our community? How can we make sure that we're putting in place the best protection and efforts to really come alongside survivors? How can we make sure our law enforcement partners receive the most critical information at the right time in order to hold traffickers and buyers accountable? But when we start to do all of those things extremely well, it's going to inform our prevention initiatives. We're going to be able to have targeted prevention, early identification, early interdiction, and then that really mobilizes policymakers to finally take their position of power and use that political will and mobilize that position because they need the information. And right now they're like struggling because they believe that it's an issue, but they don't always know how to articulate the value that it can drive with an investment. And so I think that we're at the beginning of seeing this country really unite to see proper resource allocation, proper resource utilization that will drive funding, drive the momentum into all aspects of our communities. And I think that that really will hopefully allow for everybody who does this work every single day to see the fruits of that labor. And so my hope is that it becomes a mechanism for increased funding, collective impact, and more survivors served as we see the information really start to come together in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this is just the beginning. We want to see Simply Report adopted into every single state where states have had frustrations with the National Human Trafficking Hotline and where it's currently operated. And so we are one of several organizations, but applying to see if we can take that over. But there's a lot of different states that have had frustrations with tips not getting routed to them. And so we are working with a lot of states to roll this out as a solution for them to receive tips, equip communities, and make sure that tips are routed to law enforcement. And so it's just making sure systematically, state by state, that we can see as much impact as possible. And so we've got a pretty significant roadmap ahead of us, but we're also really grateful for tons of partners in this field. And not just, we've got corporations, we've got law enforcement, we've got AG's offices, but we also have NGOs who also help develop the tool. There's a lot of collective buy-in to this because this has been developed by the field. And so we had survivors lending their expertise to help us understand what functionality needed to go into the app, what about consent, and them, having the ability to not share their personal information with law enforcement, but still report their traffickers. We had to understand from law enforcement what did they need and what was going to be important for them. We had to understand from NGOs who had stopped referring people to the National Human Trafficking Hotline, why, and what do you need as an effective tool? So after having so many organizations, I mean, I don't know, over 100 organizations that have been helping inform and develop this app, it's really exciting to give it to them as a gift and to see them steward it out into communities. And so we're just here to make it as widespread and as impactful as possible.
Looking for stories of women who are changing the world? The One Girl Revolution podcast is your go-to for inspiration and empowerment. Subscribe today on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and never miss an episode. Let's celebrate the power of women together. Well, I know that there are so many people listening right now that are like thinking about all the work that you're doing. And I know that there are so many people that want to get involved. And you mentioned a lot of different types of people or groups, right? NGOs and corporations and people that work for the state. So attorney generals and all that kind of stuff. For people that are listening, if they're like, bingo, I want to get involved in this fight. I want to be a part of, whether it's, supporting the app and getting the app supported in your state or donating. What are all the ways that people can get involved and how do they get connected to you?
It's a great question. So first of all, we have an ambassador program that allows community members to mobilize and make sure that the message of Simply Report is delivered into their communities. And so we have a training program that we just equip people to be able to go through to understand the messaging and how things work. And so that's a really easy way. Some people will, go all out and they'll, go take this into all of the schools across their community. And some are going to choose to operate as social media ambassadors and share the messaging there. So they can pick their comfort level, but ambassadors are a tremendous way to get involved. We also really encourage people to take the On Watch training, which will equip you to understand what trafficking looks like in your community. And I will definitely say donate, because we cannot do this work. We cannot help trafficking victims escape their trafficking situation. We can't mobilize communities to respond to trafficking without the critical donations from everybody. And we work really hard to steward every single dollar. So 85 cents of every dollar at least goes towards doing the work. And so that's been really important to us. So you can become an ambassador, you can take the On Watch training, or you can donate.
And download Simply Report.
And download Simply Report. Yes.
It's in the app stores, and it's available at simplyreport.com.
Well, I will put the links to all of those things so people can get in touch with you. But like I said earlier, download Simply Report, get familiar with it, because that's the kind of thing is like in different scenarios, you're like, oh, wait, what was it? Let me go back and listen to the podcast. What was it that they were saying? It's like, no, get yourself comfortable, do the On Watch training, download the app, get comfortable with it. So when you do see something, even if it ends up not being a trafficking situation, it's so important that if we see something, and especially women, we're so intuitive. And I think a lot of times we talk ourselves out of doing the right thing and saying something when it's like, you notice something that just doesn't feel right. So I just want to encourage everybody to download the app and get familiar with it. So when a situation happens, you can easily just go in and enter the information and let you guys take it from there,
Nope, that's beautiful. And we, to expand on that, I think that's the thing is that women do have these moments where the hair on their back of the neck stands up, where they know something is wrong. And we have tested this system with thousands upon thousands of cases, and cases that are not trafficking situations. And it reads that on the back end and understands, what levels of indicators are there. But here's the other critical thing. Let's say you're a mom and you suspect something with one of your daughter's friends. Something feels off. You submit a tip, and maybe there aren't enough behavioral indicators that are there for it to indicate trafficking. But that tip stays there. Let's say another mom sees the same little girl and reports a tip. And all of a sudden the system connects the name and recognizes that these are the same individual. In-home service provider goes into a home and sees the same little girl and he reports a tip. The AI is able to read underneath the system in order to bubble things back up for a human review to say, hey, this is starting to have more behavioral indicators of a trafficking situation now that it looks like these might be connected to the same individual. And that allows us to then pass that to law enforcement. And so when it's something that's small or when it's something that really is significant, either way, we just encourage people to utilize the app. It's very simple. When you go to it on your phone, on the Simply Report app, if you just click there and it loads, all you're doing is touching the chat now button, and you can engage with the chat bot that just pops up right away. And so little or big, every report matters.
That's amazing. Well, I can't wait to continue to follow. I will put the app, like I said, your websites, everything in the show notes so people can easily get in touch with you. We will continue to follow everything that you're doing, and we'll stay in touch with you all so that we can promote things that you have going on. And I always say on this podcast, the free and easy way to support any organization and to spread awareness is just to follow and share. So I will encourage everybody to follow the great work that you're doing and share about it. Share the app on your social media so other people can find out about it. Make a quick video, for people that are listening. If you have an Instagram, make a quick video about how you downloaded the app and this is so cool and this is how you do it. Because it'll encourage other people to do the same. And so I'm so grateful to have you both on the podcast. Before I let you go, you each are One Girl Revolutions. And I know that there are so many One Girl Revolutions connected to the Safe House Project. And there are so many different women that we could celebrate at this moment. But I would love for each of you to share who is a One Girl Revolution in your life? Who is a woman or girl that inspires you?
Oh, well, that's easy. She's on here with me. I mean, I wouldn't be here without her. So I don't know if that's codependency and enmeshment issues at this point. But no, I mean, I wouldn't want to do this work alone. And I think that comes down to the fact that although we deal with a lot of hard, we also have a lot of fun and we find joy in the hard. And she is one that makes this worth it because I know that we're not going into any room by myself. We're going in locked arms. And I think that changes the perspective when you have somebody else acting as a counterbalance and acting as your test and approve. And so, yeah, my one girl revolution is right here.
Well, and unfortunately, this is codependency at its finest because it's the same thing. But I think it's that we are not the same people today that we were when we began. We have had to push each other. We've had to push ourselves. We've had to learn to trust fall together. And that's hard. You know, unfortunately, I think in today's society, women can be really hard on each other, and trust can be hard. And having somebody who cheers louder for you than any other, the noise that can be naysayers against you is critical. The other person that we both collectively would say, or individuals, would be our moms. Our moms have been those people for us together. My kids are like grandkids to her parents and vice versa. But in the times that we have had that self-doubt, our moms are phenomenal, smart women who are selfless and are courageous and are selfless and have really encouraged us stepping into a space where we are operating as moms and we're operating as business leaders and we're operating as advocates. And they have their own actions in their lives have been the things that have given us the courage sometimes to step out into places that we didn't know if we could go. And so my mom always tells us to stick your head up, your chest out, and act like you know what you're doing. And
isn't that life? It's like sometimes you just need to fake it until you make it. I was texting my sister about that earlier because we were texting with a friend and she was like, "Oh, I'm not qualified." And I'm like, "This is the problem. We'll never do anything if we don't, act like we know what we're doing." And I just love that both of you did that and that your moms have encouraged you in that. And I just can't wait to see where you both go from here. And I also love the sisterhood between the two of you. I think it's so beautiful and such an example to all of us is like whether you're doing a specific project together, or starting an organization like you both did, or just like see your friends and support them and say like, whatever I can do to support you and lift you up, especially in those moments where they might need that support. We can all do that for our sisters and all build community. We all need community like that. So the last question that I always end this podcast on, and I'd like to ask each of you, if you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
I think I go back actually. I mean, there's so many I could say, but I think I go back to the one that going back to those thinking about college and thinking about like what were the things I always had no pressure, no diamonds put across my desk in college because in order to get to diamonds, you got to do really hard things and you won't feel qualified and you will feel insecure at moments. And the world wants to rob you of your identity and tell you that you're not good enough or that you don't know enough. And when we believe those lies, we sometimes shy away from trying to do the hard things, but it's in the hard things where we grow. It's in the hard things where we fail and we fail forward, but it's also in the hard things where you continue to push and breakthrough does happen. And I think it's in that we see the miracles. And those are the diamonds that are jewels in our crown that just remind us to keep going and to have that vision beyond our resources, as we've talked about today.
No pressure, no diamonds. I love that. What about you, Kristi?
I think for me, the book Lioness Arising was really one that came at a critical time for me. I had stepped away from work for a season to raise my kids and really just you kind of sometimes sit at a crossroads where you can go one path or go the other, but people tell you that you can't choose one path and then cross into the other. And I think there's a lot of moms out there that have had dreams and that have had visions of things that they want to do, but maybe they did take a step back to raise their kids and feel like they can't step back into the thing that is just burning inside of them because they're not qualified, because somebody has stayed in the work because they chose not to have kids and they can't go back. And there's all of these reasons that we talk ourselves out of pursuing the things that we want to do, that we're called to do, that we could change the world doing. And I think I would just want to tell them that it's never too late to pick up your dreams and get back to the thing that puts a fire inside of you. The quote in that book that stood out to me was, "God didn't save you to tame you." And sometimes it's easy to fall into the box that says, well, this is who you should be, and this is what a stay-at-home mom looks like. And Brittany and I somehow have managed to build this organization being stay-at-home moms who are also work-from-home moms, who are also all of the things. And so you don't always have to choose. Sometimes you can do it all and do it well. People will tell you that you can't. You have to have priorities straight, but just don't back down from dreams that you know you're called to because you feel like you have to pick.
Life is full of so many chapters, and I know you both are representatives of that, where it's like, yeah, like life is full of many chapters. And I just love the stories on this podcast where women are like, hey, yeah, I did X, Y, and Z, and then I had kids, and then something came before their very eyes that turned a page, and they were like, all right, now I'm going to start this nonprofit, or I'm going to do this social enterprise, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. But life is full of many chapters, and we're constantly evolving and growing into who we were created to be. And I just have loved spending time with both of you and getting to know you. And I'm just so grateful to have you on the podcast. So Kristi and Brittany, thank you so much for being on the One Girl Revolution podcast. And thank you for all the incredible work that you do.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us on.
For more from One Girl Revolution, to listen to all of our podcast episodes, watch our Emmy-nominated documentary series, follow us on social media, donate to our nonprofit organization, and more, please visit onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com.